Maybe you're a little bit like me, and as much as I loved working with stock imagery to market my creative small business, there came a point in time where I was ready for my own library of personalized brand images that I could use to market my brand. This is how I planned my brand photo shoot from start to finish, and it's going to help you tell your brand story and give your clients and your customers a feel for you and your brand's personality. In this video, I'm going to share with you the 5 factors to a killer brand photo shoot and also tell you about the storytelling strategy that I used in my own brand photo shoot. Let's do this. Welcome to episode 94, so close to 100. I am a copywriter and a brand strategist for creative entrepreneurs. And listen, if you haven't yet, look down below and hit that subscribe button. That helps me out so much as I work to create this channel and put more and more of this free education out there for people like you. But it also customizes YouTube, so when you hop onto the platform, the algorithm knows what kind of stuff you like, and that's always helpful. The first and most important thing to having an efficient and worth it photo shoot is to storyboard out all of your imagery needs. So what are your products and services, and what are the editorial stories that you're working to get out? If you've followed my business or in any of my programs, I've totally mentioned my obsession with The Devil Wears Prada. Here is your Miranda Priestly moment. You get to be a little bit of the editor-in-chief. When you're the editorial or creative director of your brand, I want you to think about the things that you have to get across visually. So for me, that was things like my 3 courses, my programs that I have, but also my one-on-one services as a copywriter. And to be honest, I have had a really difficult time visually illustrating that in the past. My suggestion here is that you create a list of the 5 editorial stories that you want to tell in your brand photo shoot. I'll talk about it more in this video, but I worked with Abby Springman of Abby Grace Photography, incredible photographer. And what we did is create 5 major key stories that we were going to work on to tell during the full day that I had as a brand photo shoot client of hers. Those stories were Ashlyn the copywriter, Ashlyn the teacher, so that correlates with both this YouTube channel, but also my products and my courses. Ashlyn the wife, Ashlyn the mom, and then as Abby said it, Ashlyn the Southern dame. This accent is going nowhere fast, so kind of communicating where I live, where I'm from, what my background's like as well in the images. Storyboarding out those 5 editorial concepts that you want to get visually demonstrated on the day that you have booked for your brand photo shoot is a great use of time. Also, Abby asked me to brainstorm through what she calls brand boosters. That's similar to something that I teach and call brand mascots, which you can check out in this video right here where I dive more into planning out your brand strategy. For me, this meant making sure that I had spent a little bit of time brainstorming and thinking out all of the different ways that I use to describe and tell a story in my brand. So for me, that's typically things like ballet, art, France, Champagne, Veuve Clicquot, Auburn, my dogs, and my family. A simple way to figure out your brand boosters or brand mascots is to do a quick content audit and see the kind of things that you talk about in your content regularly. How do you explain concepts, or how do you tell stories? This first step in the process needs to start way before the photo shoot day itself. And if you're like me, you're rarely at your desk when that idea strikes. What I found really helpful, and I'm still doing it, is making sure that I have a little note started in my phone, and when I have an idea of something that I need to illustrate with a photo or a piece of imagery and I don't have anything for that, I just make sure that I jot it down in my phone. Maybe you're like me, these ideas always seem to come in places like on a walk or in a shower, so that's been really helpful. I'll give you an example. Even just the other day, I realized that I would love a picture of my hands, like an overhead shot of my hands on a keyboard. I have one from a few years ago, but it's not recent, so that's the kind of thing that I want to continue to put on this list, so I have a running shot list ready to storyboard and tell later in a brand shoot. So from there, hiring a photographer is so important. Okay, I mentioned Abby earlier, but before I could afford to work with a photographer, something that I found really helpful to do was to go to local meetups here in Atlanta, meet with photographers, and hear about the ones who were interested in moving from family portraiture and wedding portraiture into brand photography. I would offer to be the guinea pig or even trade with them as they worked through their workflow and kind of figured out and got their sea legs ready to move into this as a service in their own businesses. They got photos for their portfolio. I got images that I could work with that were personalized for my brand. But now working with a true brand photographer for the first time was an incredible investment and educational experience for me. There's truly value in working with the experts. Comment below, heck yes, if you agree with that. Let me explain a couple of ways that I saw this play out. So I was able to explain to Abby those brand stories and the things that I really needed to come across, but during the day of our shoot, I was able to count on her expertly trained eye to capture the little magic moments that I never in a million years would have thought of. I can tell you 3 ways she did this. The first, I've always had a really hard time visually communicating efficiency and productivity, which I have an entire program about, and it was her idea to bring in a kitchen timer and use that to illustrate it. She came up with the idea of wrapping boxes with bows that I could use to demonstrate free gift or a bonus later on when I'm doing launches. And she also came up with the brilliant trash can shot idea right here that you can see, and that is helpful as a turnaround. I try to illustrate to people how I can help them come in and write better copy for their businesses so they're not doing this all the time. That's the value in working with an expert. Now, when I was researching this video, I saw a lot of great tools and resources out there that were recommending making a Pinterest mood board before working with a photographer on a brand photo shoot. I actually did not do this at all. Most of the visual style and photos I had for my business, I had really dialed in. Now, some of you have heard me tell this story before, but essentially here's what happened. I knew the artistic director and team that I wanted to work with to create my first library of styled images. I saved and saved and saved my pennies. I talked to her on a sales call. She sent over the proposal, and my jaw dropped when I saw the number, but she was totally worth it. So I said, hold that thought, I'll be back one day. I went and worked really hard to make the money and then came back to her and said, I'm finally ready to work with you. This is my budget, what can we do? So again, when I worked with her, it goes back to working with an expert. I really trusted her to be able to take what was in my head and put it on paper. That's her job as a creative, an artistic director, somebody who works with photographers all the time. I could tell her things that I was trying to communicate, like copywriting, and she was able to help me build a brand library with images. The problem was I wasn't at the shoot, so I wasn't in any of the photos, and that's what I was really looking to solve when I did this photo shoot with Abby. All that to say, I didn't really make the Pinterest board thing because I had stuff dialed in from working with Megan in the past. I didn't even create a Pinterest board when I worked with her then. I found so much more value in working with artists when I'm able to say, here's kind of my vision and things that I do like, but you do your thing, go forth, do your gift, and I'll tell you when it's not right. Next up, gather a team to fill in the gaps. So when you plan your brand photo shoot, again, step into that role as creative director for your brand, put on your best Miranda Priestly attire, and figure out who else you need on your team to really help you execute that look you're going for. A couple of examples of this for you. First, flowers. So typically I would just go to Trader Joe's, grab a bunch of flowers and style them on my own. But the more I invested in this shoot, as far as getting Abby in town, we just finished my office, everything I was putting into it, I thought, you know what? I don't want to look back on this and hate the Trader Joe's flowers arrangements that I made myself. So I reached out to a floral designer, told her my max budget and said, is there anything you can do with this? And she was able to deliver. I am so happy now that I'm able to look back on these photos and say that was worth the investment. Another example, I'm pretty comfortable with doing makeup and hair, probably from all of the days doing my stage makeup for ballet. I painted my nails myself, but clothes are another story. But again, you don't want to look back on your brand photo shoot and think, what was I thinking? Why did I wear that? Why didn't anybody tell me that that didn't look good? So my best advice here is see if you can recruit a really stylish friend. I lucked out in that a best friend I grew up with named Camilla worked in retail and also worked as a stylist before doing what she does now, and so she helped me. We put together 5 different outfits, which I would totally recommend as well. It ranged from like sweatpants and t-shirt kind of thing all the way to a little black dress and everything in between. She dialed it in down to the number of bracelets on my wrist and exactly what shoes I was wearing. So in my closet on shoot day, I had all my outfits laid out with the little picture that she helped me assemble on top of each outfit and the jewelry right beside it too. Everything was steamed the day before, so it was all ready to go. Now, I know that this may sound silly, but when you are investing a lot of time and money and energy into your brand photo shoot, I promise you, because I've done it the other way, the last thing you want is to be running in and trying to ask your photographer, these earrings or these earrings, does this top look okay or should I put on this top? You want all that figured out before. Trust me, I've done it the other way. I'll tell you one mistake I made here with a team. I clearly do video all the time and could use a whole lot of B-roll footage, and I thought, you know what, I'm not gonna pay and spend the money on having a videographer come in this day and shoot some B-roll footage. Missed opportunity. I should have done that. It would have helped out a lot. Number 4, gather your props. This one is fun, so set a budget. About the same time you're working on your storyboard and figuring out your outfits that you're gonna wear for your brand photo shoot, you definitely wanna think about props because heyo, shipping and not everything is 2-day Amazon delivery. Props are the little things that make a big difference. It's kind of like when you go to a dinner party and you go into the bathroom and there's maybe a little thing of flowers and a candle lit. It's the little things, right? Or if you stay at a nice hotel and there's a turn down surface and a chocolate on your pillow. Silly example, but props can be those tiny visual cues that tell your dream ideal clients and customers, kind of like a dog whistle, hey, I'm for you. So one thing you want to do is think through all of the physical tools that you use day to day in your business. Order them and gather them in advance, and then I found it most helpful to, on the day of the shoot, just have one corner tucked away where I had everything all spread out on the floor. It looked like a big I Spy from those books from the 90s, just all laid out for Abby to look and choose from. Again, she was the magician behind everything, and I wanted everything spread out so she could look at it. Pro tip here, think about written things. Maybe your planner that's marked up a little bit, or client worksheets. If you have a program or digital products, can you print out and kind of scratch up some of the worksheets? This was something I learned from working with a brand photographer, is how little you want things to look staged. Even in taking some of the videos where I was recording, we made sure to plug in the mic because I didn't want it to look like this mic was wireless and sitting there, because it's definitely not, and anybody who knows about that mic would recognize that's not a wireless microphone. Staged things usually look staged, so see how you can make it look authentic. Last thing I'll say about props, I have a client named Julie Solomon. She works predominantly with influencers, and I heard her say one time that she always tries to dress or buy clothes that are on brand for her. I liked that. I don't think I really do it, but I probably do it in a sense of the things that go in my house. So when I'm buying furnishings or coffee table books or whatever, I kind of have one aesthetic that I stick with, and that does come in handy when it's time to take photos for my business because everything already kind of matches. All right, the day before the shoot, dial in that shot list to exactly the things that you need and how you're gonna use these images. You're gonna want a range of images with varying white space. Now, orientation really matters here. I feel like all the tips I've given so far, you really wanna let that photographer be the artist and be the magician that they are and work through their process. But I have found, at least since my days of working in magazines like Southern Living, that you really do kind of have to steer the photographer and remind them of this image. How do you wanna use it? Where do you need white space? So be attuned to that as you're working through the day, but like I said, it's probably most helpful the day of to go through that shot list, look at all the different storyboards, and go ahead and think about each image that you want and the ones that you're going to need some white space over to the side so you can pop some copy or text up over top of it. Do you have images that you know you need vertical because they're going to take up more room on Instagram, but then others where you need more wide angle and you need them to be ready for a hero image on a website? That's the kind of stuff that you as the creative director of your shoot need to be aware of. Here's also where location really matters, and I've always just shot my brand photos at my house. I found that when you're working with a photographer that knows what they're doing, they're usually uncannily good about figuring out a place that has great natural light, where some stuff will be kind of like, I don't know the right word, but like blurred out a little bit, or they can recognize a field that they saw driving in and know that they want to shoot you there. They're just good at their job. So I think that location shouldn't stress you out quite as much. Also, my office is about 20 by 20, and I have a library now of almost 400 photos all in this space. Finish your day, kick your feet up. It can be very draining to have a full day brand photo shoot, but it's so worth it. One last tip, have fun with it. I was so freaking nervous before the shoot that I even actually took a shot of tequila with Abby because I hate having my photo taken. I'm like sweating even thinking about it. I freak out and it makes me so nervous. So that goes back to choosing somebody to work with that you really like and knows what they're doing, because I found that can completely put you at ease. But have fun. Even by the end of the day, we had a Disney playlist blaring from Spotify, and I was really enjoying it. Again, I want you to walk away from this with a library of images that you can pull and cull from for years to come, truly years. That client I had that I told you about earlier named Sandra is the one that really trained me to recognize how I can use images from a good classic on-brand photo shoot. I shouldn't just be able to use them for 6 months, but I should be able to use them for 2, 3, 4 years. That's what I want for you too. If you found this video helpful, then hit that like button below. Don't forget also to hit subscribe, and you will know when the next training comes out next Tuesday.